Uleliste Atsenta. Happy new moon. Soon, not at this moment, riding upon us. And while I have something special planned that I'm still figuring out how I'm going to manage streaming, I thought I'd get a jump start on reading. There is quite a bit to it. It will be very intense. I plan on being very focused on meditation. So if I do stream it, it'll be very set it and forget it. Incredible amounts of energy incoming, and this is a very powerful ball that I'm very grateful came into my path for exactly these reasons. Thank you for the friends that are here. Lilisti, Atsen Mata. We'll be pulling cards shortly. Tapping into the moon to see what she'll have to say as we prepare. Thank you for the love. I hope you feel how this tone disturbs the stagnancies. I wonder where you feel that. I wonder if you can still hear it, because it is such a subtle tritone. Beautiful, beautiful. And we've got some friends. And we've got quite a bit of information already coming in. Gosh, the lighting is funny today. It's just not staying still. Oh. Yes, okay, perfect. They all felt like one. I suppose they are. If I would imagine that you're not totally against tarot because you're here, right? But I will say that there's perhaps something different to the way that I read versus things you will typically see. For instance, I don't just read traditional tarot. I also read cartomancy. Because I also liken it to time and space, and tarot and numbers, or cartomancy is very literal. I do also think that it is a way in which we can play with time. So it is not by any means easier. And in fact, it can be, or like more simple, it can be, in fact, quite potent in that. And so numbers are very much time, and traditional tarot and its iconography and archetypal images and storylines is very much space, and the mentality and the ways in which ideas expand. So that's one, two major differences, I suppose. Maybe not all. And also that I would like and request of those reading with me to breathe with me before we pull cards. And that is not necessarily to say that you're opening up anything that you don't want to. In these cases and with collectives, we have the intention of breathing with the moon. If it were a personal reading, then for sure, you just breathe, and I'm just breathing to tap into where you're at. And so in that, your breath is very much a vehicle. And so if you are so willing to open up yourself in such a way, in respect to the land that you are and are on, then we can breathe together. And it does change throughout. You'll see. You'll see. You'll see. Whoop. Oh gosh. But I got ahead of myself because I also, with these moons, will stargaze at the charts and sort of pick apart whatever it is that I see or feel, I suppose. And so with that, we have a new moon in Scorpio, with Mercury, with Venus, with the Sun, and interestingly enough, with Haumea, which is an asteroidal body. A subtle but interesting innervation, a subtle but strong innervation. When I first tapped into it, it was very much like a ballad, like How I Love Thee, as like a proclamation, very outside of your window kind of proclamation, like love proclamation. And the songs that we sing, the songs that we sing to ourselves, the ways in which Venus communicates, the ways in which Venus and Mercury is tell songs and stories of old, the ways in which we remember thematically or pass down information, and continue to give memory life. This is also the ways in which we take on any task of beauty or physicality or perception in the mask, whether that be in full play or in suppression, to each their own. But the mask, you'll find, becomes, and then we find ourselves in places of why is it so hard to remove the mask or change the mask, and not being able to see past the mask. And so that is very much maybe the climax of the story, and where we're really understanding the direction, the trajectory of this main character arc, of your main character arc in that context. Jupiter, Uranus, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, Eris, and Ceres are all retrograde. There's a lot of retrogrades. There's a lot of deep reflection, deep pensivity. I think even the ways in which there's more moisture in the air than maybe I'm used to, and also simultaneously the next day altogether less, is that fricative state between time and place, and the feelings that it evokes very rapidly. So be gentle with yourself, but also don't take no shit, don't trust no hoes, and that goes for you too. Because I do think there's, we're balancing on a lot of edges, and um, a lot of things can be dressed as self-destruction too, that we may not necessarily see outright. Mercury and Uranus are very much sort of sandwiching Earth in their energy. And so that's very much the stories that, again, the mask, the story that we take on, that we embody, that we costume, but also that we project. In a funny way, it's like, and I've said this about Halloweens in the past because they've kind of progressively gotten this sort of feeling. And obviously, I know it's past, but it opens a door to a lot of things. And it's really the beginning and the marking, like the marking of a season where that is for the spirits. And so while we have our one night of fun and then go back and put on our human costumes, or our boy costumes or whatever, the spirits come out and are able to sort of put on their living costumes for a while. um, which is why people say that the veil is thin too. I think it's collective perception that really thins it out. So I do have a theory that it doesn't exist at all, but it is a time of year that in general we are very reflective, and so I think it's very sensitive, fertile territory. Um, with that projection, it is an output of sorts as well, of the ways in which we tether between Jupiter and Saturn, the ways in which we're weighted by Neptune, whether that be our sorrows or, uplifted, but like our dreams. How deep are we willing to go within ourselves? How deeply do we know ourselves, that we can know for sure whether we're conscious, whether we're alive, whether we're being taken advantage of. So much more than just like what your purpose is, because I feel like purpose is commodified in a very big way. So that can be really misleading in a large way too. Um, Not just weighted by these things, but also directed by Mars and directed by Mars energy. That's very much um, not just collective mentality, but vulnerability. It shows up in a lot of aggression. I swear you can tell what Mars is doing by the traffic that you hear in city streets. Um, I question that, though. I urge you to question that. Obviously, there's something to gain by where is your Mars astrologically, but where is your Mars in a 13th zodiac formation? Where's your sign in a 20 zodiac formation? What's the antithesis of this as well? 100% more so than your sun, moon, or rising. I think your Venus and Mars are much more telling. I think Vedic astrology is significantly useful, and much more apt because of this. Western astrology leads you to the head, which can kind of lead you to madness. Um, but also identity, which can be superficial. Vedic astrology will lead you to the heart, and ancestral astrology will lead you to the soul. Um, so do with that what you will, but understand that directed by Mars can have many forms. Mars can be uh, directed by your insecurity or directed by your willingness in a lot of way. And not just this, but another asteroidal body that symbolizes a lot of collective mentality and a lot of, ancestral understanding and a lot of very grounded energy in that. Um, but I think that also goes to say, if that's directing as a burden of Mars, not necessarily burden, but I want you to think more weight, like more pebbles on a string in the water. Um, then we can also get obfuscated. Is it tradition or is it religious trauma? Oftentimes, and more often than not, the two look very similar until you realize that you are in fact duped in a cult. And in a cult. Um, I think genuine connection is very much a point of this, and Uranus going back to Gemini may be much more that, not picking sides, but building bridges. Um, obviously there's a lot going on with cult mentality, and I think that a vulnerable point in that is loyalty. But a community can also be exploited in that. I think it very much has been. I think if anything, we're trying to read, or we ought to be trying to redefine it, um, because too often are we looking community just to feel accepted, and as a sort of like pick me syndrome, really, um, and not as a shade to anything, but just as an awareness of understanding cult mentality and the reasons in which we do find ourselves in, looking for things. Um, or looking outside of ourselves or looking outside of our reason. I think even with tradition or religious trauma, at the end of the day, it is about your connection to the land, to the earth, to spirit, which is something that man can't touch. It's something that man is constantly trying to understand and perhaps may never fully. And that is maybe a beautiful part of the world, in the same way that you'll never watch all of Netflix or read every book or see every beautiful thing, because just when you think you did, in fact, more opens up. And so there is an opportunity for expansion rather than self constriction, in putting yourself in any one box, if that makes sense. Let us not be misdirected by complacency and outrageous. I think regulation very much bounces in between two states, but to liberate beyond that is to create new patterning and in paradigm beyond those two states, um, beyond this or that state. It's a creation of altogether new. I think to ignore that altogether is very self-destructive, though there is a lot of this or that about it. Um, you know, for sure, people reject the idea that your breath is powerful because they're complacent in their rage and their misery. I think it's just so tangible that it's hard to believe anything else, and I get that. But that is again this Venus and Mercury relationship. How if you were to write a love song to your future, you know how is it you would sing those things, and how would this mask interfere or intervene? Um, and so with this, are you ruled by what you're told, or are you ruled by how you want to feel about it? Um, Obviously, there's like distinctions in there. I think you can be ruled by what you feel too, and not necessarily be fully aware of that. That's compulsive more so than conscious, but and being ruled by what you're told is very much like subservience and like do what you're told. Very much cult mentality, very much something I think we see in many ways, shapes, and forms around us. The lack of questioning. This is something that I very much tap into on my Tohei piece writing, and the ways in which it's deemed undesirable or feminine, because like curiosity is equated with that, or questioning the system is equated with femininity, and also like undesirability or weakness. Um, when in fact it is the strongest part about your brain. Um, your capacity to visualize or to imagine in general will always be, I don't know, like the muscle that can never be too big, really. Uh, like too much biceps and you can't touch your elbows together. Uh, you know, too much this, too much that, whatever. But this part of your brain that connects to something, and scientists still don't know where it is or what it is or why or how, that can grow forever. That can grow beyond what it is we recognize or understand. And that is much like growing beyond your mask. Um, Pluto is not in retrograde, which is really beautiful because I think that is also a very stable footing. Um, that is to say, with these Taurian energies, um, that can be very imbalanced and stubborn too. I think it's very much saying like step out to get in, or like a the clearest example that I can think is like how you have to kind of like step out to juke in sports or like in fighting, you like step out and then you can swing in and you're like in a closer line of contact. Um, it's very much kind of like that energetically, visually. That it reminds me of. Um, and you got to step out to get in. Maybe that's, I mean, in a lot of ways, like taking a chance on yourself, networking. Doesn't have to be physical. It's even, and it doesn't have to be literal. It can very much be in your mind too. Take a chance on yourself. Step out of your comfort zone, of the box that you've given yourself, to get not into a new one, but to get in a new mindset, to get in a new, you could get in a new one if you want to, but to get in a new mindset in general. Neptune, Saturn, Pisces, a lot of water energy, a lot of fricative nature within memory. Again, with Taurus, it's like, well, how may is an openness to change but opposes Taurus. So again, with this Taurus, we have this uh, capacity for expansion. And when you don't like step out to get in, or like step out to juke, or like widen your stance to be able to absorb more, then it's like being cut off at your knees, or like being in quicksand and somebody like throwing the top of your body over. It's like too much will happen before you're ready or willing to adjust. Gosh, as I'm like, I hope that makes sense. What else did I write in this psycho notepad? I think that's it. Um, with that being said, we're going to tap into the moon, take a couple of breaths so as to increase our awareness and our connection to ourselves and our surroundings, and see what that moon has to say. Sound fun? Sound good? Lovely. Much like we are hanging out and there are cards in between us, we will take 3 deep breaths together. Ideally, in and out, in through your nose, out through your mouth, or in and out through your nose. Ideally, you also want fairly straight spine, or just to be aware of the fullness of your breath. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Interesting. There's a lot of green. Interesting. 8 of, with blue at the bottom, 8 of wands. 8 of clubs. That is the bottom of the deck. That's a lot of turmoil, a lot of friction. I think maybe even, and I know this already in so many ways, but there's a lot of friction that's unidentified, a lot of friction that's not talked about. Even when we are breathing, it was like trudging through like jello rather than water. And so in that way, it's like, what are we, obviously so many of us are swimming upstream or swimming against the fucking current, but like, what are we drilling against ourselves, or what are we like withering away at in ourselves? What is eroding, or like, what have we not looked at in a long time? I feel like it's like like the way rocks will like the way water will form holes in rocks in strange corners. And it's like things that we don't pay attention to about ourselves or sort of let go by the wayside end up kind of leaking. It's leaky energy, that's leaky gut, that's leaky faucets. um Various ways in which energy escapes you, which even as we're breathing, so many people don't breathe like that. Like, I do recognize that, like, clarity is always helpful, but also that unconsciously most of us don't breathe through our nose, and consciously I think most of us have to remind ourselves to breathe through our diaphragm, unless we're using it for work, unless we're using it for some sort of labor, like singing or speaking or breath work or what have you. um and maybe that's just more consciousness, and or a work skill consciousness of the tonalities of your voice. Very much overthinking it. Very much overthinking it. Eight of fucking clubs is very much like so much going on, and like, yes, entertain possibility, but that does not mean doubt yourself. That does not mean question everything. But you don't always have to question yourself for the sake of questioning yourself. I think the more you get better at, understanding what those things feel like and what your values are, the less apt you are to be like, is that really what I think? Is that really what I feel? Um, However, it does loop back around where you get so comfortable with yourself and your knowledge and your capability of acquiring knowledge, um, that you're comfortable being able to be like, but is that really? There's a healthy balance, and the general goal, I think, is always a trajectory of, um, uniting ideas or uh, communication of ideas, your ability to understand and like uh, relay, but also unified goals and collectives and what have you. That ultimately becomes the agreement. So even when you have disagreements, like very true in relationships, even when you disagree about something, you always come back to like the main point of like, okay, but I'm choosing this person, I'm choosing this relationship. Da, 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 da. That continues to be the like uniting factor. Um, so I think, yes, this is really like chaotic in the mind space, and very like jittery almost, but you can steady it. It is always steadyable. It's almost like a like wasted energy. It's almost like misused energy. I shouldn't say wasted, but misused energy, misdirected or lack of direction in energy. That, yeah, it kind of bounces off the walls, kind of goes everywhere. Ricochets rather than patterns, really, which can be quite wild, and quite abrasive. But it can pattern also. This is an 8. So it's like the proper fanning of a flame, too. It doesn't have to be wildfire. If you fan the flame appropriately, which takes what? Oxygen, um, then you get maybe the perfect toroidal function and proper warmth and desire from it. 4 of diamonds, Jack of hearts, 5 of diamonds. So greens, 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 greens. Interesting. Um, Diamonds are also much very earthbound, very tangible, very literal, very sensory, even if not literal. And Jack of Hearts, obviously very sensory, is very much water energy, very much in the middle of this. So I get the feeling that the 4 of diamonds and the 5 of diamonds is almost like what is in this Jack of Hearts pockets. You being the Jack of Hearts, us being the Jack of Hearts, according to the moon. Um, 4 of diamonds. 4 of diamonds, I would think, is connection, communication, like a conversation, going out for tea with somebody, meet cutes, meet and greets, um, what did I say earlier? Collective more so than community. I feel like that word's maybe coming back for artists in a fun way. What's up? What's up? It's also a pair. So in the cases of you thinking that you need something to do something, like I can't do this until I have this, perhaps that is an avenue to bridge and find somebody that's also moving in that direction. And it's like looking for the other piece of a locket or something. It is valuable. The half is valuable, but it can also be shared. And I think that's really important. Um, like planting seeds that end up being very useful later, or like giving back to everybody later. There's definitely like more than 4 here. It's like a baseline blessing, baseline prosperity, baseline kind of positivity. 5 of diamonds. Again, funny things in our pockets. Jack of hearts. What do you keep as tokens of the past? And are they memories of heartbreak, or are they memories of connection? That's also something that I think times have very much been asking us. As wounds open and continue to weep as we grieve, which is again why it's a potent time for spirits in the air, because they understand that aspect of us. They understand a little too much, which depends on how you go about it, really. Five of diamonds is prime, so it's more than enough. It vibrates. It's like pockets full of offering. One that maybe is a half but is still whole and still useful, and another that is so whole that it serves as, I don't know, like when somebody asks you for gum and you're like, oh, I've got the perfect piece. You like made that person's day. Or if somebody asks you for a tampon and you have one in your bag, you made that person's day. That's very much this 5 of diamonds. It's like having the perfect, like you already have the perfect amount of whatever it is that you need to offer yourself into the world as you would like to. The question is, how would you like to? Do you want to do it because that's how you've seen it be done before? Do you want to do it because that's what you were told to do? Or do you want to do it because that's how you imagine yourself feeling like you? How does it feel? Not just for you either, but as a whole. Like, what does that look like? And allow your brain to stretch itself beyond the masks that you've worn. Because as impossible as it may seem, those masks got there somehow, and it was by the same pattern. In the same way that people were like, oh, wow, I didn't know AI was this smart, even though we've taught it essentially like we've taught babies, essentially like we've taught humans. Predictive programming can go really far if you see the pattern for what it is. Somebody said that breath work from last time really came in handy. Cool beans. I'm glad. That's why I'll do it. It is one of my favorites. Speaking of breath, this would be a very balanced breath for the most part. But if you notice, I mean, 4-5, it's like a longer exhale. I think would be essentially, but it would also pass through the heart. it would pass through the heart, so I think it would be fluid rather than stay in the heart, rather than like held in the heart. So fluid breath but longer exhale is actually very useful for feelings of bliss or euphoria. Don't get too carried away with yourself. Holotropic breathing very much uses rhythmic breathing in that way, where it's not, there's no ends on the breath, essentially. It just sort of moves together cyclically. And so I think it synchronizes the brain in a very interesting way. But longer exhales will also be very relieving. It pushes a stress mechanism in your brain. So it kind of is like very literally a workout for not just your mind, but your physical lungs as well. And if you have trouble getting the whole body on board, then use every breath to breathe with a different part of your body, so that you can independently like sort of like go around the room and like meet and greet each part of your body, like, hey, you want to do this thing, get on board. Because you'd be surprised how much emotional state can really affect the way that it is that you're breathing. Kind of what you naturally do. Yes, breath is something that we do both consciously and unconsciously. Do we know the difference? Sometimes I think the difference is very stark and also very blurred. Well, then you came in the perfect time to get your whole body on board. And that's exactly what this Eight of fucking Clubs is too. The whole body ain't on board. You know those ancient, I mean, it's not ancient, I suppose, but there's an old torture mechanism where they would tie limbs to a horse and then they would smack the horse and the horse would run. I don't know if that's based on the Judas Cradle or vice versa, but similar thing where each limb is sort of tethered in its own way. And so that's very much this energy and what it can feel like when you're trying to engage in something, but not all of you is on board, not all of you is participating, not all of you is present. And ignoring that disunite is a form of self-sabotage or self-destruction. All right. If you are present and you are willing, may we tap into the moon and see what is to be learned. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Interesting. Very interesting. Quite intense. Quite intense indeed. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like I just got to see that. And like I get it, I know the light's there. But have you ever looked at the sun from the bottom of water and it just kind of like refracts everywhere, but there's also like a warm spot. I feel like that is very much what's attached to this, which is such a calm sweet, comforting way about it, rather than just intensity, rather than like shock and awe and rawness. Um and if I recall, it was in the last moon's reading that we also discussed the ways in which we obfuscate for ourselves the difference between toxicity and passion, or toxicity and carnality and compulsion and desire and love and dalliance, just because y'all scream a lot doesn't mean it's passionate. Maybe it means you both need to work on yourselves. Just because, the sex is rough doesn't mean that they're great in bed, or that the sex is great even. Sometimes it just means that like they treat you like shit and you're down with it, or they don't respect your body and it makes you feel closer to them. Um which is hard to hear. I know, I've been there though. So I feel you. But the various ways in which it like, is this just exciting, or are you bored and commitment phobic? Um the various ways in which we confuse those things, um and ultimately put ourselves into some detrimental lines of fire, thinking that it's good for us, rather than maybe having to do the hard work of realization, of self-realization, to prevent self-destructive tendencies. The Knight of Pentacles, Two of Pentacles, Ten of Wands, Six of Wands, bottom of the deck. Six of Wands, bottom of the deck, is very much, um, especially by that last example, the ways in which we use that as a defense mechanism. While I do think oftentimes this card is like protecting a beautiful creation, I get the feeling we're protecting a lot more of our own dysfunction than we are our creation as a society. That's not to say all. There's every day I wake up and there's more and more people that are doing beautiful things in the world, and it makes me hopeful. Um, and there's people that are retaliating against it too, because of this willingness to protect their own delusion, or willingness to protect their own defense mechanism. Delusion doesn't have to be like shady either. Like, it's just a different reality that we fucking came up with to cope. Um, and that comes in many, many, many forms. Um, and exactly that, maybe keyword, like, how are we coping? Like, what are our coping mechanisms? And the ways in which that this can relate to how that helps us relate to family or what have you, how that helps us build stability within ideas and creations and communities, is also very much our capacity for like problem solving. Like when shit hits the fan and you've got to cope, the family's got to cope, the group's got to cope, whatever it is, like, how do you deal? And that very much can make or break this card. You can shut down and again protect your defense mechanisms, or you can rise to the occasion and, you know, do what it is you think the ultimate protector in your heart would do. And not the ultimate protector like at any and all cost, but like the ultimate, like, I want the best for you. And that's something that I often try to bring to my meditations or my magic or my conjurings, is it's not just me, man. It's all of us. And I think the more we're able to recognize that, the more our own understanding and opportunity and wonderful things are able to expand with us, rather than just kind of bounce off the walls, I suppose. Knight of Pentacles and Two of Pentacles. Ooh, okay. Like, it's like it's like the opposite of hoarding, or like Like, think of something that you love, like a physical thing, like a golden coin or like your favorite cupcake or, your grandma's cookie recipe. Now break that in half and give it to somebody next to you. And, take note of how you feel about it and trust that it'll only allow you to see more of it elsewhere. It only really serves as an expansion of interest, an expansion of love, an expansion. It's like when you propagate plants and you give somebody a cutting, then they've got a whole ass plant, and it's really beautiful to see, and it's very fun to see, and should fill you with wonderful feelings inside. Um, I love splitting a good cupcake or getting somebody their own treat. Um, I like when they really like treats and like treats as much as me. Give too freely, is that because you don't value it though? Because yeah, if it doesn't matter to you, then why would it matter to anybody else? It's like, oh yeah, it's just a card. Here you go. Rather than, it could be a scrap of paper, it could be half a napkin. But if somebody is like, this is something super beautiful and super special to me and da 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 da, maybe that's the way you need to look at it. If you're giving too freely, maybe it's because you yourself don't value the things that you have. And when you are able to place more value to that, more significance to it, um, then it'll matter when you give it to people. Like billionaires donating $1 billion is like a fraction of a fucking penny versus, people that make $25,000 a year and are, constantly volunteering and doing whatever they can to make that work. Um, it's very much about the value that we place in it. I mean, even the idea of gifting comes from the spirit that we breathe into it. If there's no spirit you're breathing into it, then you're just giving garbage to people. No offense, but like it's empty objects, it's not necessarily garbage, but like it's empty objects. There's no spirit behind it. So like, sure, give, that probably allows you to be more careless with it. And that's, if it's affecting you in a negative way, then focus on your concern. Focus on where your concern lies. And perhaps that influences it more. Like there's lots of people who will just buy you a gift, buy tons of gift cards for holidays and whatever. Buy tons of They'll definitely buy you something. Don't worry about it. They'll definitely buy you something. They'll fill your stocking with stuff. Um, but they'll never like make you something. Or conversely, maybe wouldn't appreciate something made or don't value it in the same way. Whereas some people would absolutely take a homemade something or other over, I don't know, whatever name brand thing, the new Ugg boots. That's totally out of style now. New Birkin bag. I don't know. But I hope that makes sense. It's definitely not a this or that. It's very much a like, well, what value do you place behind it? What's the spirit of it? And that can really be a changer. That can absolutely be uh, what makes it larger than life or what makes it sort of flaccid. I often also, as I'm saying this, like I often find this parallel within dating, especially within polyamorous dating. And my favorite, I love this because I'm sure this will piss somebody off. Um, but my favorite way to go about it is fucking AI. If you ask somebody who's practicing polyamory why, in my experience, they usually will fumble around some words, don't really know why. But they'll narrow it down to one of two things. I really wish there was a more common third option, honestly. Maybe somebody else surprised me. But they usually narrow it down to one of two things. And 9 times out of 10, it is one of these things. And it is because They say, and I'll explain the differences. They either say uh, that they're polyamorous because they will not hold themselves back from experience or other partners or da 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 da. Conversely, one might also say because they don't want to hold their partner back from any opportunities or experiences. It's a very subtle difference. Again, there's a subtle strength in a lot of the energies of these planets. Yeah. The subtle difference here is where the priority lies. In the first example, my experience, da, 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 it's about you. It's about that person. They will do anything to make sure that they feel pleased. And that is problematic. Ding ding, red flag. Conversely, the other one, subtle difference, but strong, they will do anything to make sure that their partner is happy. Big differences, worlds of difference when it comes to relationship. A very subtle difference when it comes to semantics, I suppose, and words, and intentionality, really. But very telling, thoroughly telling. Has never led me astray. If anything, saved me some trouble. Which is very much this story too. Like, for sure, I understand this. King of Pentacles inverted, like saving yourself trouble, holding on to your energy, holding on to this. And like, I'm not saying be reckless with your energy or your words. There's absolutely people that do not deserve it and do not appreciate it. I feel that way often about streaming to the public. But this Two of Pentacles is very much the ability to reflect. And 100%, I can also say this. There's people that I have met through reading online that were able to really compound on energies and ideas with me. And at the end of the day, uh, that's what that information is for. Not about, many me kind of things. Um, and the Two of Pentacles, and it becomes bigger in that way. Then other people spread the idea, or other people find more acceptance in themselves, and they're able to walk in more truth. Da 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 da. And it's very much in rhythm and syncopacity. This is what helps continue on an orchestra. This is like finding rhythm, which is also dope with this Jack of Hearts because, like, who doesn't love hanging out with somebody who's got rhythm and loves to dance, right? So, again, very literal, but also very metaphorical. Depends on how you want to take it. Let's see. Of the many treasures, I think in general get very grounded in yourself, but not so much as to deflate yourself, just enough so as not to take yourself too seriously, honestly. Has anybody ever seen that? There's like a meme of the Grinch doing yoga, and it's like a stress relief thing. He's like, big breath in, and then he screams at the end of it, like, ah! It's very silly. And exactly that. I mean, even I could scream louder than that. Do I need to? Not necessarily. But in that, maybe it's like, what's the loudest? What's the loudest your body's been? What's the loudest your voice could be? Yeah, get very grounded, but not so much as to take yourself too seriously, so much as to continue to grow and to continue to be able to see things in a new light. Yeah, you can rock with that. We can rock with that. All right, I will leave y'all with that. Keep an eye out for streaming tomorrow as I go meditate by the water before it freezes. And until next time, live a little, laugh a little, give something away. and understand your coping skills. Gosh, of the many lovely things in this reading. All right. Sweet dreams. Happy dream seeding. Dream that ICE agents realize that they're terrible people and quit their jobs overnight. That's what I've been doing. And until next time, my friend, I will see you soon, and I send you lots of love and fearlessness of yourself these times. Banish your fear of self. Be live. Create. Bring peace. Decolonize.